if you look at the history of how the IAB has approached the PC-based web, I think the very first thing that the IAB did was help establish standards around ad sizes, right? I mean, just sort of how big should a banner ad be across different websites. So creative kind of comes first, then currency, then that question that you just asked, is the buyer getting what they're paying for? And then more recently, the IAB has taken on some standardization efforts around audience. Are the planning metrics justified and accountable? And so I think it's sort of over time you end up covering all of the various metrics that go together to make the industry work. And in interactive, there are a lot of different metrics. It's sort of the blessing and the curse of the industry. Mobile is going to be the same way, if not more so. But so I think similarly with mobile, we've kind of started with the IAB's mobile committee started with an educational effort because the MMA has already established standards around creative sizes that seem to be working pretty well. And then, as we think about, well, should there be a standard currency metric, it seemed like a good time for our organizations to come together and put our collective heads together to work out what that should be.
So, Kristine, it seems like you've been following a similar trajectory. The MMA on your side has been concerned about putting together creative standards, making sure that consumer best practices are addressed, and now it's a time where you're getting down to standards around measurement. At the same time, the IAB is, and you're now going to be working together. What does that look like? The two organizations, the Mobile Marketing Association and the IAB coming together to do something collectively. How is that going to work? Tell me a little bit about how you guys got together and putting the standard in place as a joint task force, or whatever we're calling it.
Sure, it is a collaborative effort with the IAB US and the Mobile Marketing Association, along with the Media Rating Council, the MRC. So it's a collaborative effort, joint task force. We started a few months ago. Obviously, we're leveraging both memberships very heavily to help support us in that work effort. The work product that we're going to be creating is going to be the Global Mobile Advertising Measurement Guidelines, and hopefully we'll get that out.
Sounds like a lot to be doing, and it is really. I mean, I think in terms of keeping the project manageable, we're starting with display advertising and messaging-based advertising. Those two pieces are kind of the first ones that we're trying to establish some guidelines around. Well, how do you measure those, and we'll go from there, right?
Right. I think one of the important pieces here is that we've talked, and I'm sure you've heard a lot today about all the different types of advertising that you can do in mobile, which is all wonderful and important and extremely exciting about engagement. But what we're looking at here is to try and measure the kind of the lowest common denominator. So we see the mobile web banner ads and the messaging being extremely important in trying to decide that lowest common denominator of what is measurable in the space right now. And that's because of the difficulties in measuring across carriers, across regions, across languages, across currencies. So.
Handset capabilities too, yeah, there's just so many different variables, some of which are similar to what we know from the PC. There's definitely precedents, but some of which are very unique to the mobile world.
So what, at this point, at this juncture, what are metrics and measurement, what roles are they playing in the current mobile market, if they are at all? And I guess the next segue from that is, what will happen when there's a standard in place? But what's happening now? Is it everybody for themselves? What are people using to measure right now, and what void will this fill?
Yeah, I think it's we see a lot of impression measurement. We should see a lot of click-through rates. We see a lot of click cost per acquisition. So I think everybody's using metrics to really stimulate the environment and figure out, okay, were we successful? But I think what we want to be able to do is create some sort of common language so that people can communicate across platforms, across campaigns, and create that comparison.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's huge amounts of creativity in terms of what specific metrics an advertiser wants to look at to know if they're getting what they expected out of the campaign, and that can be brand impact studies like what we saw from Insight Express or what Dynamic Logic does. It can be something as straightforward as click-through rates. It can be impressions, and clicks and impressions, because they're familiar, they have a very strong precedent from the interactive world. Those are really the two specific display metrics that I think we're looking to standardize. But that's certainly not the limit in terms of what people are measuring. And I think you have some great examples there.
Yeah, we really want to establish that common language so that we can create that comparison.
Right. I mean, it's not to say that if an advertiser really cares about how many people shook their ad, that could be the metric that they even maybe pay the bill on, but certainly the metric that they use to judge is the campaign working. But again, you got to start with the simple and more universal things before you get to the more exotic and customized metrics, and that's the way our project is working.
Right. And we also want to make sure that the metrics are trustworthy. So I think that's one big element that we'll be establishing as part of these guidelines as well.